So we're keen to hear what you make of Judge President Selby Mbenenge's testimony at the tribunal. Do give us a call over the next few minutes. The number is 010-594-6010, or send us a WhatsApp on 072-110-5584. We get some analysis now. Legal analyst Melusi Xulu joins us for more via video link. Melusi, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I think before we even get into some of the arguments that are being made by the judge president and you know, how you think those are going to be viewed by the chairperson of the tribunal, I do want to get into the tone of what we saw over the last few days. You know, what we saw, many would describe as a visibly irritated and rattled judge president, particularly during the cross-examination of Skeepers. As she continued to question him. I mean, can we talk a little bit about that? Because it was such a big bone of contention for South Africans. What did you observe there?
Okay, good evening to you, Dino, to the viewers at home.
It's Naledi, Melusi. It's okay. People make that mistake all the time.
Apologies for that.
No worries.
Yeah, I think, look, what is important is the judge has his strategy with his team, with the senior counsels, and his strategy is to stick to his story and not to allow any perception that maybe the evidence leader might want to put on him. So when something is put to him and during cross-examination, he makes sure that he stands his ground, and I think that's what he was making. It may perhaps come as arrogant, but it's just that he was confident about what he was stating in defending himself.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting perspective on, I suppose, the tone of that exchange. Okay, now let's get into what was being argued. I remember there was a point where there was quite a back and forth around whether or not this process that we're watching through the tribunal is one that is about a legal argument or also about making some kind of moral judgment on him. That being a point that he was arguing, that the morality of it is subjective. But really what this tribunal is there to do is to decipher if anything illegal took place. What do you make of that?
I think that's a correct point to make, because what may be moral to the other is not immoral to the next person. It's all about perceptions, or it's subjective. So one may look as a person who wants to have a girlfriend outside of marriage as something that is not right, as immoral. So the immorality of it, or if I put it like that, it's not really something that this case should focus on. It should focus on whether he did do anything illegal, and then he's standing his ground and he's saying, am I the person that has done this thing or not? So I think that is what he's saying, that stick to the legal issues and not the moral issues.
Yeah, do you agree with that, though? Because surely the issue around morality is not just about, you know, how one views, you know, even wanting to pursue an extramarital relationship, but rather about his stature as the head of the judiciary in the Eastern Cape, which is where Skeepers really did start her questioning, asking him, are you cognizant of the position and power and authority that you hold?
Yeah, I think it's all about sticking to the definition of what, I just want to go straight to the chase about what sexual harassment is. And there is a form of sexual harassment called pro, where maybe someone is using his power as a person who's in a senior position to at least, you know, push someone to do what he wants in a form of compensation for a job, something to that nature. So maybe the power dynamics might be an issue in that regard. But at the end of the day, if I may, I believe what will be important in this case is to look at the thin line between flirting and sexual harassment, and whether when the complainant may have, let's say, she does not want these advances to be done to her, and if the judge listened and stopped. I think that's what, for me, that is what I'm interested in. Because if you look at even case law, that is what they look at, whether if there were advances that were made by the person who was making it, or the oppressor, rather, inverted comma, did he stop at that point, or did he continue, so that one can say he was then harassing the complainant?
Yeah, but what is the sense that you got then in that very debate, Brad, whether or not what we were listening to in these WhatsApp conversations to you sounded like flirting or sexual harassment? I mean, in that cross-examination, Skip is asking in different areas about just how often he would text Mengo versus how often she would respond. I mean, even a back and forth around, you know, how she used the word hi, which is no in his Xhosa.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think what is important is, for example, I'll give a case law which clearly made this thing to be clear.
Sure.
It's a case of Mayepa versus CCMA, because this was a senior commissioner at CCMA. What happened there was the lady complained about the fact that he was saying to her, "I love you, and I want to take your photograph and put it on my chest every night," something to that extent. But the important issue was when the matter was taken to the Labor Appeal Court, the judges that they said what is important is the lady did not tell the person who was oppressing her to stop. So that is where I think it's important. But if a person doesn't say, I'm not happy with what we are doing or what we are saying to me, or whether it's just a non-verbal conduct, it's important that the person who's doing the wrong thing must know that he's doing the wrong thing. I think that is the key issue. But for him, I think what I'm getting from the defense, that it is that he's trying to say this was just two adults who were having a conversation and were happy to chat and to flirt, inverted commas. But I think what will clearly define the judgment before, but obviously we're going to hear years of argument, but what will clearly define the judgment is whether it was the flirting or whether it was sexual harassment. And did the complainant let the person or the judge president know that what you're doing right now is sexual harassment and I want you to stop. That is very key.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we've got some WhatsApps that have come in from our viewers. They share their thoughts on what we've heard this week with the judge president giving his testimony at that tribunal. Let's see. TT sends one that says JP Mbenenge is fighting for what's left of his reputation, and he's extremely condescending, forgetting that he is the respondent and not the presiding chairperson. The cross-examining advocate is just too weak for my liking. She's definitely not in control of this cross-examination. Power dynamics are also at play in this tribunal. He is disgraced. He has disgraced his family and the profession. It is so sad. TT, thank you for sending in that message. Anonymous says, I believe for one, he is dearly embarrassed, or was that clearly embarrassed at his age, having to justify the type of predicament he put himself in. But then again, the law has to take its course. Anonymous, appreciate your contribution. Tapa Mulapisi says Mbenenge's testimony paints a picture of a consensual, lightly flirtatious relationship protected by records and cultural context, yet the tribunal isn't just weighing mutually consenting romance, it's assessing whether repeated refusals, especially from a subordinate, constitute harassment. Okay? Molepo says the confidence of JP Mbenenge is too suspicious. As of yesterday, at time of rap, he punched the fist as triumph. He knew what he was doing at the time. Now he's given the stage to humiliate Ms. Mengo. This is what is happening in many offices. Molepo, thank you so much for that one. Let's take some calls now. Slilo's calling in Pretoria. Slilo, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Talk to us. Your thoughts?
I'm one. Yeah, this behavior of this old man, it shows this is exactly what is happening behind the doors at the offices whereby male have power, because he's so arrogant. He's there for big English. That's only what he's doing.
Yes. So what do you think the end result of this will be?
Must be fired. Must be fired. He must go home. Doesn't respect women at work. He thinks he's the boss. Thing is an old thing that black people, when they've got power, they use it. He must go home. Doesn't even have the morals to become a judge. A judge should be someone that every person, a woman, especially women and children, should cry on, and they must lean on him, and it must be good for that woman, not to take advantage of women.
Slilo, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it. Lydia is calling in Klaksdorp. Lydia, good evening.
Good evening, lady. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for calling. Talk to us.
I'm not well. I'm so angry. I'm so angry about this old man's attitude. I'm so angry, lady. It happened like this to victims of rape for Ntate Omotoso. Where is Omotoso right now? This guy is so defensive. The attitude is stinking. The person who's a president judge president who must teach us morals, a family man. I'm so disappointed. I'm so angry. I'm putting myself in Andiswa's shoes. I'm so angry.
Yeah.
I'm so angry. If he's right, why is he behaving in this manner? Why is he defending himself in this manner? Somebody who should teach us morals.
What do you think should happen? What do you want to see happen at the end of this tribunal, Lydia?
Let justice prevail. This guy the lady is innocent. We can all see. He's been sending messages. He's been deleting messages. This guy must be charged.
Okay.
For all the wrong things that he has done. He was supposed to lead by example to his junior staff, especially the lady.
Yeah, Lydia, thank you so much for calling. And this is the thing, is that watching this tribunal has gotten a lot of these sort of very emotional reactions, Melusi. And one of the things that Lydia has talked about is the deleting of messages, the gaps in the sort of communication that we do see as they looked at the conversations. And I'm keen to hear if that for you is an issue, right? I mean, at some point there was the fact that just yesterday there was the pointing out that not every single word or every single message between Mengo and the JP had been entered as evidence. But of course, the argument that the bulk of it is there. Is that concerning?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the deleting of the messages is concerning because one would want to know everything that happened between them. But I believe that there was an agreement where at some point where they decided that they should delete their messages of the conversation they had. But if we had all the messages, maybe we'll get a clear picture of what's happening. But at the end of the day, there is some evidence that is there, and it's up to the judge then to decide whether there's sufficient evidence to find the JP guilty.
Because this speaks to if there was a meddling of the evidence that is presented to the tribunal, especially when you look at the issue around missing CCTV footage of corridors of a day that was looked at quite closely by the tribunal. I mean, saying and perhaps this even speaks to just how much power someone like the JP or people that surround him have access to.
Yeah, I think that the CCTV for me is concerning because I think it will paint a picture whether the victim or the complainant did go to the office of the JP, because that is one of the key issues of him allegedly showing his private parts to the complainant. So if you see that some evidence is not there, but at the end of the day, there's no one that is saying why it's not there and whether it was destroyed or not. So it will be a bit dangerous to say it was destroyed. It's just that it's not there. But we can't know who might have destroyed it, maybe to say it like that. But at the end of the day, it's concerning if maybe there's an allegation to that extent. But if I may, Naledi, just one point that I think I want to make very clear. If you look at the Code of Good Practices on handling sexual harassment cases, item 4 is very clear, and it says that it's unwelcome conduct, or whether by verbal or non-verbal or physical. But there's a point that is made in that code of practice where it says, I did mention it at first, and I think that's what you were pointing at, but I wanted to be very specific about it. It says it's a co-pro harassment where the seniority of the person harassing the complainant is being used, where if the complainant is maybe approached, she'll be afraid that she might lose a job, or maybe she might not be able to refuse those advances. So I think that is where the evidence leader is trying to point that maybe you were using your seniority to continue to harass a Mengo. But I'm looking at the fact that his main defense is in this case I was just having a flirtatious relationship with the person who was consenting to it.
We heard him say a few times that he interacted with Mengo as a social being, not as the judge president. Mighty's calling in Klerksdorp. Mighty, good evening. Okay, we've lost Mighty, but we'll take perhaps one more call, 01059461010. We never got into this issue, and I think it's important. The cultural context that keeps coming up, or has kept coming up in the tribunal, what courting in the East Xhosa cultural context is, and how all of that fits into, you know, when you put it up against the allegation of sexual harassment, the argument around, well, as part of Xhosa cultural courting comes with the persistence, right? Can we talk about that, and if at all that helped the judge president?
Yeah, look, in our culture, there are certain practices that we've done. For example, there's Twala custom where a lady is taken by force. It used to be done legally, but now it's no longer legal, where you take a woman forcefully to your homestead. But now let me talk about ukumuta. I know we're saying it's uktuma, it's ukumuta in Xhosa culture. What I learned about it is that it's where a male, if he's making advances to a female, but then she pretends, inverted commas, to be shy to his advances, but actually she's interested. So I think it's a subjective kind of approach to look at, but that is one of the aspects he was using to say when she was pretending to be shy, I felt that she was actually welcoming me in a way, because ukumuza means the end, I'm subject to correction.
Melusi, are you still there? I lost you at subject to correction. Say that again.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I lost you at, you said ukumuza is, and you said it's subject to correction, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying I'm subject to correction because I'm not familiar with it. It's a new term to me. But what I'm learning from it is that it's where a female is pretending to be shy and...
Yeah.
Yes, hello?
Yes, I'm listening to you. It's pretending to be shy.
Yeah, and then the lady can pretend to be shy, but the male will proceed.
So, I mean, this sounds to me like we're talking about, in English one would say playing hard to get. And I just want to just tackle that a bit, because this isn't just, a conversation that is taking place in a community in a rural setting. This is a learned judge president who understands the law, the ethical responsibility that he has in that position, and to make that argument, the point that I'm trying to get to, Melusi, is, does it hold water, considering that we're speaking to someone who has a full understanding of the law, rights to association, to be protected against pressure from another person, all of that?
Yes, that is why in the beginning I said, Naledi, there are certain practices that we used to do as Black people in our different tribes, and then they become tested in the modern society. So now the question is, in a workplace environment where there's a senior and a junior having these conversations and flirting and so forth, can you really then say that by a person pretend? How can you define that a person is pretending to be shy? So that's the other issue that might come up about ukumuta. But hence I say I'm subject to correction because I'm not familiar with it. But the way I'm looking at it is that, can you really say in the modern society that ukumuta can be a defense in a sexual harassment case? So that will be interesting how the judge will give the judgment. But before the judge brings a judgment, I'm interested to listen to the heads of argument of the advocates.
Okay, let's take one last caller. Dr. Nzira is calling in East London. Dr. Nzira, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Yes, I was saying, given the technocratic know-how of law, of the labor legislation of South Africa, of Judge President Mbenenge, what he did was unethical, you see. Yes, because he's top of the hierarchy and the lady is just a secretary. And the lady just considered, she had no option but just to, to collude to what he was saying, so that, sometimes it might be in fear of protecting her job, you see. But in his defense, this Judge President is a technocrat in law, you see.
Yeah.
He's very defensive.
So the lady, that she knew the weak points of the lady. That the loop was in the case. That's how he's getting away with it. But the lady, yes.
Doctor, thank you so much for calling you and bringing us your insights. This is going to be, I think, a really ongoing discussion for South Africans as we reflect on just our cultural nuances and what we need to be perhaps really looking at when it comes to understanding sexual harassment and allowing for women to feel safe, if that, of course, is part of the central point here. But we're going to leave it there. Melusi Xulu, legal expert, to giving us his views on the tribunal that has been looking into those sexual harassment claims against the Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge.